Hey Ken, thanks for using Racers360. It's Dion here. I'll be your coach today. Excited to be working with you. I think we got a lot of great things that we can work on here. Read through your notes, and I'll try to keep all of that in mind as I go through things. So, as we come up over the hill into turn two, what I want to highlight here is look how narrow we approach this corner. We've got a full half car width out to the outside that we're not using at the turning point, which then means this first part of turn two is way tighter than it needs to be, which then affects our car angle at this point. So ideally, I want to have my car angle coming in across here, somewhat parallel with this apex curve as I get to it, so that I'm aiming for somewhere in the middle out wide already. But notice here, where our car angle is right now, you're looking way straighter, which then means you have to turn more aggressively in this first apex to get the car rotated, which then causes you to overslow, probably induces understeer because it's too much weight transfer happening too fast. And you can just see here, right now, you're having to slow the car down more than I would because you're having to turn it more aggressively. You eventually get parallel with that curve, but it's a later, more aggressive turn-in versus a more gradual turn-in, so I'm able to trail brake it much deeper in here. And then look at this throttle. See how we add throttle? We come off the throttle, and then we're more patient, then we get back to throttle. So we really want to be super, super precise on our throttle application throughout the lap. And I'm going to highlight that a little bit more. But ultimately, what I need you to see you do here is coming up over the hill in turn one, get out wider. I want to be all the way to the outside as I get to this three board. And then what you're going to see here is just about this two board, in between the one and the two board, you'll start to turn in. You'll start a very gradual process of getting the car pointed down towards this first apex, but you're going to come from a wider position. You're going to be a much wider radius of the corner, so you're going to be able to flow a lot more speed in right now. So what I try to approach turn two is brake hard. As I start to bend it nice and early, coming off the brakes, super light on the brakes, super light on the brakes, super light on the brakes. And then as I want this rotation here, maybe I just add a tiny little bit of brake pressure, get the car rotated, and then bam, getting back to initial throttle here. The second half of the corner in turn two, I think you're pretty solid in. I'd like to see you be just a tiny bit more patient to throttle. See how we're not quite pointed towards the second apex, and we're getting back to throttle. And I think a lot of your understeer is coming into how you manipulate the weight transfer, in that when we get to throttle, before we're unwinding the steering wheel a lot, before we get the car really pointed to where we need it to go, we take the weight off the front end, and where the weight goes is where the grip goes. So we're reducing that front grip, and you're inducing the understeer into the car. So I'd like to see you just be a tiny bit more patient, just to about here. And then, bam, initial throttle. And I want to see you probably back to full throttle in here. But the majority of the time game is coming in this first half of the corner here, getting out wider, slower turning, so that you're coming more naturally to the right apex. You'll have less steering input right now, which means you can be going faster, get more rotation in here, patient, bam, back to full throttle. All righty. So in turn three, we want to work on an earlier and slower turning point. So my turn-in marker for turn three is the very last like red stripe in here. That's my turn-in marker. So let's see, where are we turning in here? Let me go farther forward. See how we're turning in all the way at the end of this white curve? So you're turning in a full car length later than me. This is my turning point. But you're also turning more aggressively. And when you just think about angles, the sharper the angle, the slower the car has to go, the faster you're moving the weight transfer. So I think we're really, we turn in too late, too aggressively, so you can't naturally bring in entry speed, and we can't trail brake down the apex. Notice how we're still having our car try to carve down the apex. We're still having our hands turn. We're still asking for that front grip, but then look at your throttle. See how you're starting to feed it in already? And that's inducing this understeer. So I am only picking up initial throttle right here in this corner. Your line's fine right now, but you can't roll in more entry speed because you're turning too late too aggressively. So what I want you to, again, think about, summarizing here, is a little bit earlier of a turning point, but I don't want you to apex earlier. So the only way you can do that is by turning in slower. Let the weight transfer happen slower. Be more gentle at the turning point. Let the weight shift and find its platform, and then coming off the brakes, trailing in, trailing in, trailing in, patient to throttle, patient to throttle, patient to throttle, patient to throttle. Here's my initial throttle application because here's where I'm unwinding the steering wheel, and I want to see it back to full throttle here. And I can immediately tell you right now, we're losing a good chunk of time at corner exit here because look at your throttle trace. See how we're coming in here? We're roughly at, let's call it 50, 60% throttle, and then we're up to 70% throttle, and then we're dropping down to 50% throttle, we're dropping down to 30% throttle, going back up, and then we're only back to full throttle here. So if I were to draw what your throttle trace looks like, let me kind of draw out on a graph here, just to be a bit rough with it. So coming in, let me get some data here. So we're kind of picking up throttle, we're doing this, we get up to a lot, it drops down, it comes back up, drops a little bit, and our throttle trace in turn 3 looks something like this, roughly. When my throttle trace in turn 3, what I want it to look like is something like this. It's not an on-off switch, but you always want to be an exponential curve. And once I pick up the throttle, I never want to have to release off any of it. And the only way you can do that is being much more patient to initial throttle. So the main thing that I want you to focus on as a driver is to build the discipline and say, I'm not allowed to touch the throttle until I'm ready to unwind the steering wheel. The reason you're picking up the throttle too early is because you're overslowing. In your mind, you're saying, oh shit, I'm too slow. Let me get back to the throttle. But we've just highlighted how that induces understeer into the car, and it gives us this throttle chase that we don't want to see. It also, so it's not the correct way to fix the overslowing problem. So what I first want to do is take away this Band-Aid. Don't allow yourself to use this to fix your overslowing problem. You're going to be out there disciplined. You say, damn, I've turned it too slow, but I'm not going to get the throttle to help me find the speed. Now, this is going to cause you to take one step backwards in terms of overall lap time, but it's going to be able to let us take 10 steps forward on fixing the problem correctly. You're going to take this lap time hit initially because you're going to brake it in the exact same place. You can do everything the same, but you're not going to have this throttle in here to help you gain speed again. You're going to feel excruciatingly slow on entry, and I want that. I want to magnify the issue. Once we're at that point, once we've built that discipline, we're going to focus more on step 2 on how to actually solve the overslowing problem. But mostly it's going to come in with that earlier turning point with the slower hands and coming off that heavy brake pressure. I don't want you braking deeper, but think to yourself about coming off the brakes and letting the car roll to the apex. Most important thing right now, the main thing I want to focus on in this video is just getting your throttle applications in the right point, and future videos will work on really fixing that overslowing problem. So once again, let's look at turn 4. Where are we getting back to initial throttle here in turn 4? We're coming in, good turning point, bam, already back to throttle. Now, again, what I want to highlight here is where do we get back to full throttle? So you can see here, you get back to initial throttle, you're coming off of it, right as I am attacking the throttle. This is my initial throttle application, and I'm back to full throttle in here. So right as I'm attacking the throttle, you're having to back out of it. And you can see here, because of the understeer that you induced with your early throttle application, you're not back to full throttle until you're out at this exit curve. So if you play this kind of full speed, I know this doesn't look great on your end. We come in, we turn in, bam, throttle, induce that understeer, and we can't unwind the steering wheel because of that throttle, that too early to throttle. So really be patient in turn 4 and think to yourself, what do I need to do to get back to full throttle early? That's what matters in a turn 4. Not how early can I get back to throttle, how early can I get back to full throttle? Then you're not going to be able to do that unless you be patient to throttle and really wait for that unwind moment. Wait for that apex before getting back to throttle. You're probably going to guess what I'm going to talk about in turn 5. Turn 5 is the same thing. Coming in, braking. As an FYI, this is my turning point for turn 5. We have, for uphill corners, downhill corners, and cambered corners, we want earlier turn-in points so we can really use, for uphill and cambered, the extra grip we've got. For downhill, we have less grip, so we need that earlier turn-in point. So see how, again, similar to turn 3, you're turning at the end. I want to turn in back here with slower hands so I can roll more speed. Let's see, where are we getting back to initial throttle? Let me actually just back this up a little bit. Coming in, your initial brake application, great spot. Already back to throttle. For me, on a good flying lap in turn 5, my initial throttle application spot's about here. I am treating this like an entry speed corner. I want to roll so much speed that I can't get back to throttle until about here. And then I'm back to full throttle in the same point as you. But that allows me to roll a lot more entry speed into the corner because I'm doing it the right way. So earlier turning point here with slower hands, let the car roll to the apex. You shouldn't be needing the throttle already here. Rolling it, I'm coasting, I'm coasting, I'm coasting. Initial throttle, and then back to full throttle about here using all the road on exit. Your exit looks actually pretty solid. Just need to work on that throttle application so that you can roll more entry speed up the hill. Let's take a look at turn 6. Great turning point for turn 6. See how it's the last red stripe here again? This is sort of the theme for turn 3, for turn 5, for turn 6, for turn 10. Though my turning points are always this last red stripe. So great job. But we're already back to like full throttle here. Actually, that might be a shift. Let me back this up and let's turn the volume on. Okay, that's a shift. So your throttle here actually comes in a pretty good spot. Bam, full throttle. We have to release out of a little bit. Let me watch this one more time, full speed. I'm going to turn the volume on. It's not going to sound great on your end. I'm just trying to listen to it as well. It's hard because the shift is so high in your car. It's hard to really tell. Let's see here. Looks like we're pretty solid through here. I know that our data is not great, so it's hard to tell. Are we on a little bit of throttle here? Are we off of it? So I can't quite tell because it always shows some throttle right. If you're back on throttle here, it's too early. Really just make sure you're patient until the car lands in this compression. So I can tell for sure we're back on throttle here. This doesn't look that early, but in turn 6, precision matters. So I really want to wait for the car to compress. As soon as I'm in that compression, I'm attacking that throttle hard. And I can see that we're running out of road on exit here. So part of me says we either just floated too much entry speed, and this could just be, yes, we're a little early to throttle here, earlier than I'd like to see, but this might be more of a just too much entry speed. Just think to yourself, this little bit of throttle release here costs a lot of time up the hill. So just remember, no matter what, once I'm back to full throttle, I do not want to release off that full throttle, especially if I'm going uphill. So if I need to roll a little bit less speed through turn 6 so that once I commit to it, I can hold it, that's going to be ultimately better for you. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Yes, we're a little early to throttle in turn 6. Let's fix that, but we might need to back down our speed a little bit so that we don't have that release. Let's take a look at the corkscrew. The corkscrew, actually, I thought you actually looked pretty solid to me. Good break point, holding it to the right here. There's probably more speed up over the top of the hill here. This is a corner where I brake. I get lighter on the brakes over the top of the hill, and then I brake more aggressively once it's landed on the other end so that I can roll more speed over the top of the hill. But your lines and everything look pretty solid here. A little early to throttle, so just be patient, patient, patient. Maybe a tiny squirt of throttle, come off of it, bam, committing back to full throttle, using all the road on exit. I'd like to see you try to be a little bit more to the right here, but I'm okay with this. But ultimately in turn 9 here, what ends up happening is we don't quite attack enough down the hill, so we don't get the car to bring us out wide enough. I don't want to see you, like, let me be clear with this coaching session. I don't want to see you all the way out to the right-hand side. For me, the ideal situation is if you're like under the E here. So slightly wider than where you are, but I'd rather see you be narrow in than out here. I do not want to see any driver out over here. And a lot of people love to be out there, but it's wrong. So I would like to see you try to drive it a little harder down the hill so that the car pushes you a little wider in here. So right in here, I want to see you about a half car width wider than where you are right now. And I want to see you not on throttle right now. So what I do is I attack a little harder down the hill. And as we get the little bit of compression in the road here, because the road flattens out, I want to be off the throttle. I want the car to take me a little bit wider. And I use off the throttle and that compression to get the rotation. And ultimately here, I want to be coming across with a slightly different car angle. So because I'm wider, this is going to be a little bit more like similar to turn 2, right? Because I'm wider, my car angle is going to be more naturally looking more down the road. Because you kept it too tight in, your car angle is looking a little bit more in this direction, and that's why you're running out of road at corner exit. So think to yourself about trying to be a little bit more aggressive as you come down the hill so that you can be patient to throttle. So I would rather see you on throttle here, coming off the throttle and off the throttle coasting. But notice how you're on the throttle right now, and that's inducing your understeer. I would rather be coasting down the hill, patient. This is my initial throttle application spot, and I can be back to full throttle here and hold full throttle here because that's slightly different car angle in the middle of turn 9. But it's just small things here and there. Hopefully that makes sense. Turn 9 is a really hard one to explain because there's no great reference points. So turn 10, like you said, you missed the apex a little bit this lap. We just turned in way too late. Turn 10, our turn-in point's this one board. We need to be turning in here. It's downhill and camber. So really an earlier turn-in point's necessary. We need slow hands. All of the grip in turn 10 is all about getting your right front tire onto this apex curbing early. I want to be coming across on this apex curb and like fully down as close as possible to that yellow curb. The whole road's cambered, but there's a little additional camber if you can get your right front tire to hook into that apex curb. So there's some tracks in some corners where if you miss the apex by a half car width, who the hell cares? Like if I rolled in more entry speed, great. Laguna Seca is one of these tracks where you've got to be inch perfect. You've got to be inch perfect in turn 3, in turn 4, in turn 5, and in turn 10. If you're not, it's like it goes from all of the grip in the world to no grip, especially true in turn 10. So this is one of those corners where back up that brake zone if you need, but really make sure you've got that earlier turning point and get your right front tire onto this curb and use every inch of this red and white curb and get as close to that yellow curb as possible without touching it. So I'm on the curb right now. I'm all the way across the curb right now. Notice how you're close, but you sort of come in and try to late apex it. I come in and I have an earlier apex so that I kind of have the camber catch the car more and rotate the car where you sort of fall into it. The other thing is, let's take a look at the throttle trace in here. Coming in. Throttle trace actually looks pretty solid in turn 10. I would just say get that earlier turn-in point, and you might just need a little bit less entry speed in here. I think a lot of the understeer is from missing the apex point, but it also could be just not long enough of a trail break in here. So get that earlier turn-in point. Let's see if that'll fix the understeer. If not, get a little bit longer of a trail break, bring down that mid-corner speed a little bit more. Even if you go 2 miles an hour slower through the middle of the corner, if you're committed back to full throttle, you know, I want to be back to full throttle here and holding full throttle. If I'm 2 miles an hour slower than you in the middle of the corner, but I'm able to hold full throttle at that point and not run out of road, I'm going to be gaining a second on you through here because of that. So if you need to have a little bit more less entry speed, like we talked about in turn 6, do it. And then again, turn 11, I noticed you said you were missing you're overshooting it. It's super easy to do. I can't tell you how many times in Laguna I've been on a hot lap, really going for it, and I'll break myself into turn 11 and screw my whole lap up. Just remember, the thing that is most important in turn 11 is getting to that apex and getting back to full throttle. If I break a half car length later, it's worth really like not much time at all. So it just sounds to me like our priorities are just slightly wrong here. You're like, oh, gotta go. We just come through turn 9, turn 10, fast corners, right? And we're coming into the slow corners, so it's super easy to overshoot it. Remember yourself, take a breath. 3 boards are brake zone, usually. Get the thing slowed up. Apexing, I want to be apexing now. Be super patient to throttle right. See how we're already back to a little bit of throttle, but you're definitely not unwinding the steering wheel yet. I want to come in, apex, wait for that throttle. Initial throttle comes here. Bam, full throttle here. That's going to matter a lot more than trying to roll 2 miles an hour more or breaking a half car length later. You've got to be patient to throttle, get back to full throttle as early as possible. So thanks again for using Racers360. I hope that all made sense. The main thing I want you to focus on is really being disciplined to initial throttle. That's going to allow us to fix our overslowing on corner entry problem much more. It's going to help you a ton on the understeer you're feeling, especially at corner, mid-corner to corner exit. So hopefully that makes sense. If you got any questions, you know you can reach out anytime. We're here for you. Best of luck and look forward to seeing your progression in the next video.